the cardboard package suddenly ripped apart. The sound of frozen meat spilling just covered the sound of the manager's door slamming shut. That was how young Millie ended up trapped inside the freezer at -8 Celsius. She had no idea at first. Not until the manager cut off all the store's lights. Only then Millie sensed the danger. She rose quickly and pounded on the heavy door. In panic, she flicked on the freezer's lights, yet her heart never lit up again. The manager kept answering endless calls and never heard another sound. When he finally left the mall, his phone call still hadn't finished. Millie searched frantically for her phone, but sadly, it was sitting on the counter in the store. Facing the freezing warehouse, Millie felt cornered. She had no plan what to do next, but she refused surrender. She discovered a cart and rammed it against the sealed door. No matter how hard she struck, the door refused. Her hands, instead, grew swollen and torn. As the icy air worsened, Millie rubbed her palms again and again, hoping to steal the smallest bit of warmth. By chance, she touched a cinema ticket in her pocket. She checked her watch. The final show was nearly over. She grabbed a tray, hurried to the door, and fixed her gaze on her watch without blinking. When the time came, she banged the tray madly on the door. Just then, a crowd leaving the theater wandered past the store. But everyone was busy debating the film and discussing supper. No one caught Millie's cries for help. When the crowd thinned, a little boy strolled past. He heard the banging and told his father. But as the man lowered his phone and came near, the tray slid from Millie's grasp. She was already frozen to resist further. Her only chance was gone. One by one, the mall's lights darkened. Millie was completely locked in the freezer. Her watch cracked from the frost. Worse still, her nose began bleeding from the frozen air. At this rate, she wouldn't last much longer. Afraid, she curled tight in the corner. She didn't know what else to try. She didn't know how long she might survive. Soon, her palms stiffened and frost crawled slowly across her arms. Millie forced herself to be strong. She removed her earrings, pulled a thin shirt from her bag, tore it in half, and tied the fabric around her hands and feet. But it wasn't nearly enough. Her toes cracked from the cold. She could only curl tighter. She couldn't measure how much time slipped away. In a daze, she realized all the freezing air came from the two fans overhead. She summoned her will again, dragged a box across, and ripped it into two square sheets of cardboard. Hauling her damaged body, she climbed the ladder. The icy wind sliced her face like knives. She rose on tiptoe, trembling as she pressed the cardboard against a fan, then carefully taped it. Just as she finished blocking the second fan, the first piece blew free. Millie crawled back after it, but her foot slipped. She plunged hard onto the ground. Luckily, Millie rolled quickly, but tragically, her right foot was crushed and broken. In this freezing trap, that wound made things far worse. So Millie made a daring choice. She gently wedged her foot between the shelves. Carefully, she slid a cardboard sheet from the side. She held her breath. With one brutal bite of her teeth, her broken foot snapped back into place. She endured both the agony and the cold. She bound her foot with cloth, set cardboard against her ankle, and knotted it firmly with tape. Now the shattered ankle could at least bear some weight. Millie sought food for strength. The fries, once soft, were frozen like stones. She had no option but to curl near the wall. Suddenly, Millie noticed a mouse nearby. She didn't flinch. Instead, she lifted the box beneath its paws. Inside lay a piece of chocolate. She quickly ate it. Only with energy could she fight for survival. Watching the mouse search too, Millie snapped off a bit and tossed it to the mouse. After all, they endured the same merciless fate. By then, the freezer's air had dropped to -16 Celsius. Without an answer, she would freeze dead here. Then, Millie remembered the lighter inside her bag. She started burning whatever she could grab, even her Canadian visa application. It meant she was willing to abandon dreams just to breathe. Sure enough, the temperature slowly lifted. The mouse crept closer, basking in warmth. But soon, dark smoke filled the room. Millie coughed harshly, choking on the fumes. She realized smoke might kill her before the frost. She hastily seized a sheet of cardboard and crushed the fire. That was when she glimpsed a half-burned paper. On it was a sketch of a warm fortress. Suddenly, she thought of an idea. Dragging her wounded body, she stacked boxes and plastic frames into a small shelter. She laid cardboard overhead and even let the mouse inside. Hidden there, maybe things wouldn't feel as frightening, but the icy air still crept through. Everything around remained frozen. She couldn't tell how long she lasted. When Millie awoke again, her arm had slipped from the cardboard and frozen flat to the floor. She had no second to spare. The longer she delayed, the harder it would stick. So she clenched her teeth, pulled her arm free, and screamed in pain. The mouse had already frozen stiff. After such stillness, every motion doubled her torment. She couldn't guess how much longer she could hold on. At that instant, Millie lifted her gaze at the fan's spinning blades without its cover, which she managed to wrench it off earlier with a steel pipe. By now, the freezer's chill had sunk to -17 Celsius. Without a new plan, Millie would surely perish. She collapsed briefly. She wrapped her frostbitten arm in plastic. Then, she covered her whole body with it. In her left hand, she clutched a chunk of frozen meat, staring fiercely at the ruthless fan. At that moment, Millie looked like a warrior reborn. She hurled the meat at the spinning blades. After many throws, her eyes grew sharper, harder. Finally, she poured all her power and launched the meat at the fan. This time, her will brought success. The icy air still pierced her frame. To guarantee the fan's stayed broken, she shoved in more meat. Now only one fan remained. If she could block it too, maybe she might survive. But her strength was nearly spent. She missed her throws, then collapsed weakly on the ground. By then, her skin had turned purple and cracked from frost. With her last shred of strength, she gently tapped on the wall. To her surprise, her fingers found a screw. Millie drew her hairpin, carefully turned the screw, and pulled off the cover. It revealed an escape hatch, but she lacked strength to climb out. Instead, she picked up a tray and struck twice inside. Just then, Millie's father, desperately searching, happened to walk past. He caught the sound and hurried to the hydrant door. It looked only like a fire hydrant. He nearly walked away, but just then, Millie collapsed entirely. The tray slid from her hands and clattered loudly to the floor. The noise drew the father back. Instinct told him every second mattered. Millie lay on the frozen floor, eyes shut, and in that moment, her father finally discovered her. Millie was saved at last.